Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Unnamed Sports Show. My name is Ryan. I'm joined by my co hosts, Jason and Jerry. Fellas, how are we doing?
Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good. First show. First show.
First episode, we're underway. For those that are watching, if there are any of you out there, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all of our social media at Unnamed Sports S. And then you can listen to us also. We'll be uploading our live video to wherever you watch your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review there. But we'll get things underway. Jason, how has your day been so far?
Busy with work. We have one person out, but other than that, we're just chilling.
Jerry, you been excited for today? Nervous? Ready?
Oh boy.
Don't talk about. Let's go. Let's not talk about seasons ending. Right here, over. It's fine. Um, I figure we start this episode. Let's talk a little bit about last week. We got a recap. We had 6 walk-off game-winning field goals, first time in NFL history. I mean, absolutely absurd finishes yesterday. We had Arizona beating Atlanta, again walk-off. Detroit beating the Chargers. Seattle beating Washington. Cleveland beating the Ravens. Houston beating the Bengals. And the Denver Broncos beating the Buffalo Bills. Jerry, how's that make you feel? Hey, real quick, we're having some technical issues. Jerry, you're not your mic can't be heard. Sorry,
How
guys.
about
This
now?
is
There we go. It's working now.
there. Let's start that over. Jerry, Broncos, huge win against the Buffalo Bills. They somehow pull it out. Tell us how that makes you feel.
I
Where does that
can.
put the Broncos going forward?
Well, we'll get into it with the power rankings later, but nothing could have got me more excited for the season than seeing Russell Wilson play like vintage Russell Wilson, play like he played when he was with the Seahawks, getting out, scrambling, being flushed out of the pocket. He had a couple of huge first down runs, and then at the end of the game, the best play in football, the underthrown ball to the receiver that's past the cornerback when he's getting engaged eight. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I couldn't have wished for anything better than a dub on Monday night.
Well, that's not true. You could have wished that Buffalo had 12 men on the field. Oh, wait. They did. Will Lutz comes back out and knocks down the game winner after missing. Shanks it first time. Not so fast, my friend. There's a flag on the play. Comes back out, smacks it right down the uprights. What a win. I'm looking through these teams, Jason. I don't see the Jacksonville Jaguars listed as one of those 6 teams. What happened? What happened?
That's the Jaguars. What happened? Yeah. So I guess this is the result of having the 31st worst offensive line in the league right now against Nick Bosa and Chase Young. They showed why it pays to have good offensive linemen. So, yeah, I no comment. Honestly, no comment.
49ers were a buzzsaw. They are back, as you'll see in our power rankings when we release those here in a couple minutes. A couple other games just to go over. Cleveland Browns, huge win over the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, the news today, devastating for Browns fans. You know, par for the course, right? As things seem to be going well, right? As you think, all right, we got a chance. We're Super Bowl contenders. Our defense, number one in the league, good running game. Deshaun Watson starting to look vintage, out for the season. Shoulder surgery that on his throwing shoulder, broken shoulder. Finished that game 14 for 14, by the way, with a broken shoulder and a high ankle sprain. Cannot question his toughness, but out for the season. So, we'll see how we do with Dorian Thompson Robinson. Arizona Cardinals look to be back. Kyler Murray, he looked relatively like vintage Kyler Murray. Jason, do the Atlanta Falcons have a chance to turn this thing around, or are they dead?
They're dead. Bad coaching. I mean, come on, dog. Like, you have two, again, I said this, I think, last week as well. You have two of the most athletically gifted players in the whole league, and you just don't use them. And they did use Robinson a little bit more this week, but it's just crazy to me to see all the talent that they do have not get used, and it's just not working out for them.
Yeah, they look to be uh, well underperforming, especially with someone like Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts on their roster. Artie Smith does not have the boys buzzing. They've lost, I believe, three straight, or two of the last three at the very least. It's not looking good for the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit of good news, Jerry. Are the Houston Texans making the playoffs? Are they going to unseat the Jags in the AFC South? What is going on with the Houston Texans?
All I'm gonna say is I put a bet down today to have CJ Stroud win the MVP. That dude is balling out. I don't know about winning the division. I still think the Jags are there. I think they'll figure it out. But
My guy.
with Deshaun Watson going down for the rest of the season, that seventh seed in the AFC is wide open now. And the Texans, their schedule's not too bad moving forward. And when they can beat a team like the Bengals and Joe Burrow, they you know they can get it done. And CJ Stroud has proved he is a clutch player who can get it done in the tough spots.
That's the truth. And don't look now, but Houston only one spot behind the Jags in division. Sorry, Jason, I hate to point this out. One spot down, and they already have a win in Jacksonville over the Jaguars. So don't look now, but we'll see. We'll see. Other exciting games from the week was the Seattle Washington game, kind of the game that honestly was a lot closer than probably should have been. Sam Howell right now leading the NFL in passing yards. I mean, that's pretty absurd. I don't think that was in the NFL script this year. Jerry, are the Washington Commanders? I mean, are they just a fun team to watch at this point? Do they have any chance at making a comeback in the NFC, or is it just they've already traded away everything that they had going for them?
Yeah, I think the NFC, at least the bottom of the NFC, is so bad that that seventh seed is still wide open, kind of like the AFC. But with them trading off Montez Sweat and Chase Young at the trade deadline, I mean, all signs are pointing to they're throwing in the towel. They're tanking, looking forward to next year. Not that they're not going to be a competitive team because they do have a lot of weapons on that roster, and Brian Robinson and Terry McLaurin, but and but yeah, and with Sam Howell leading the league in passing yards, kind of blew my mind when I saw that today. I'm like, what? And with the record that they have, kind of crazy. So I think they'll be competitive, but as far as making a playoff spot, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think they just have traded away any assets that could have got them there. I 100% agree. Kind of skimming through the rest of the weekend, the Germany game. I feel bad for the product we produced in Europe. That was terrible. 10-6 final score. The Probably two of the most boring. Well, the Colts have a pretty decent offense, but Patriots, one of the most boring teams in football, one of the worst teams in football. Belichick probably getting fired at the end of this year. One of the feel good stories of the weekend, Josh Dobbs, the pastronaut. For those that don't know, he has a aeronautical engineering. Is that right? Degree.
Sure.
Could literally be working for NASA right now. Instead, he's been on 9 different teams in the NFL and finally seems to have found a spot, at least for the rest of this year, in Minnesota. Jason, does Josh Dobbs and this Minnesota Vikings team with Justin Jefferson coming back? I mean, are they going to make a run here? Do they have a shot to make a run?
Absolutely, especially since they're in the weakest conference, or Yeah, in the weakest conference, I believe that they definitely have a chance. If the biggest thing that they needed was stability, and with your quarterback getting hurt, Justin Jefferson being hurt for most of the season, you don't want a quarterback in there that's going to be turning over the ball, and that's what Josh Dobbs does best is make smart plays. If he can't get the throw, he'll use his feet. He had what 40, I think 40 something yards rushing and a touchdown, and then 268 yards passing and a touchdown. So no interceptions there, and just nothing that jumps out at you, but just solid play.
I 100% agree. I know a team that could really use someone like Josh Dobbs, a team that
Almost
had him at the
like
beginning of the year,
it's almost like
traded
you
him
had.
for a seventh round pick to the Arizona Cardinals. I can't really remember what team that is, but they definitely could use them right now.
Don't look behind you.
Who's gonna tell him?
Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, what an exciting weekend of football that parlays us. We'll get to a parlay later into what I think is probably the best way of doing power rankings that's ever been created. That's how we do them here. There's not one person coming out here. We're not fighting each other on what they are. All three of us come up with our individual power rankings, and then we put them together, average them out, use median, mean, any sort of math. We already consulted with Josh Dobbs on how to do that, and then we've come up with the official NFL power rankings going in to week 11. Let's go ahead and unveil those first eight, Jerry. At the bottom half here, or I guess bottom quarter, I should say, we have the Panthers at 32, Giants at 31, Patriots at 30, Bears at 29, Cardinals 28, Rams at 27, Titans at 26, and the Packers at 25. Not much to write home on the back end here. Basically, the race for Caleb Williams, unless you're the Panthers. In that case, you've already given up your first round draft pick. Um, of these teams, Jerry, who is going to get that first overall pick?
It's got to be the Panthers/Bears. I mean, the Panthers are just terrible right now, man. I would say the Giants. However, there was a report that came out that Daniel Jones is going to be back next season, along with Brian Dable and their GM. So I read that right as we were going live. So obviously they're not taking a quarterback. They may trade back and try to take somebody like Marvin Harrison. But the Panthers, I wouldn't be surprised if their one win against the Texans is their only win this season. I think they are that bad. Frank Reich, for some reason, decided to retake play calling duties this weekend because that really worked out for him this week against the Bears. Or him not having them. It's just whatever however you want to put it. That team is so bad. And with the Bears really lucking out getting DJ Moore and that first pick for their first overall pick last year, they're really set to move on from Fields and Tyson Bagent and take Caleb Williams and possibly somebody else at another draft pick.
Yeah, I don't know. When I watch the Giants play, I say this is the most abysmal football team I think I've ever seen. Uh, Tommy DeVito is just not it. I think they probably win the sweepstakes if I had to. I think Bryce Young shows touches of talent or touches of. I mean, he beat the Texans. He's not great, but he's not Tommy DeVito bad. And their defense has some players. Jason, anyone that you think has a right to potentially slide in for that Caleb Williams pick?
I think it still has to be the Panthers, unfortunately, or the Bears pick. But and the only reason is because it's 1-1 right now. So like, if the Giants and the Panthers had the same record, I would say probably the Giants. But again, like Jerry says, they both could go the rest of the season not winning a game. So at this point, I think if that happens, then you just have to give it to that Panthers Bears pick.
Yeah, fair enough. And for those that don't know, the Panthers, this most recent draft, traded up. They traded away DJ Moore as well as this upcoming year's first round draft pick to the Chicago Bears. So if the Panthers finish worst in the league, the Chicago Bears will have the number one overall pick. Moving into our next eight teams. This is sort of back end of the bad, I guess you could say, the best of the worst. Um, we have the Falcons at 24, Jets at 23, Commanders at 22, Raiders at 21, Colts at 20, Saints at 19, Broncos at 18, and the Buccaneers at 17. Jerry, your Broncos, 4-5, only one spot, kind of two spots out of that potential playoff spot. The Browns look like they're down bad after Deshaun Watson. Do the Broncos have a shot to slide into that seventh spot in the AFC playoff picture?
Yeah, if you had asked me that question before the Chiefs game, 3 weeks ago, I would have said no shot, no shot at all. Tank, cut Russell Wilson after the season, try to trade up for a draft pick. After beating the Chiefs and the Bills back to back, moving into a record of 4-5, with, as I alluded to earlier, with Deshaun Watson going down and that seventh seed for the AFC being wide open, anything is possible. Their schedule really isn't terrible moving forward. We've already gotten both games against the Chiefs out of the way. We do have to play the Browns still. Then we have the Chargers twice, and I believe we also have to play the Lions again, or the Lions, yeah, because we play the NFC North this year. So there's a couple of tough games left, but when you beat the Chiefs and the Bills back to back, you can pretty much hang with any team in the league.
Yeah, and I think honestly, just a couple spots behind them in the same division. The Raiders, I think, are the other team in that division, really vying for that spot. Jason, tell me, does this interim coach, kind of Aiden O'Connell, Max Crosby, Devontae Adams team? I mean, I think they could slide into that playoff spot just as easily as well. I think, as Jerry alluded to earlier, it's really wide open right now. Do you see the interim coach being able to lead the boys to the AFC playoffs?
Not so fast. I would say no.
Lee Corso references in our first show. Impressive.
Watching that Jets game, they still have a lot of issues to work out, and I don't think Akano can help them work through those issues. Now, that being said, they do have a purpose and a focus, but throwing up, yes, the Jets have a great defense, but you have to score points to beat some of these better teams in their division. So I don't think they'll be able to offensively carry the load. And yeah, unfortunately, I don't think they make that playoff spots. I do think they win a couple more games, but they're definitely going to lose some more games too.
Yeah, it's difficult to tell. They're right outside that bubble. Their coach is a new interim guy. People tend to rally around that, but at the end of the day, the AFC is really tough, and Aiden O'Connell's a rookie quarterback. So,
and I just want to say something real quick. They have a very hard schedule left to play. They have the Chiefs twice. They have the Dolphins this week, and they also have the Vikings still. So they've got a tough gauntlet ahead of them.
They do. They sure do. And if we know anything about the Raiders, they'll make a lot of these close. They'll probably sneak out a couple of them and then miss the playoffs by one, maybe two games. So that's if history is to repeat itself. But I think these next set of teams are really in the playoffs / on that bubble, really vying for that spot. These are kind of the back end of the best teams in the NFL right now. We have the Chargers at 16, the Bills at 15, the Vikings at 14, the Steelers at 13, the Bengals at 12, Seahawks at 11, Texans at 10, and the Cowboys at 9. The Bills, back-to-back weeks, meltdowns at the end of games several times this season. Where are the Bills of old? Why are they struggling? Jason, take your victory lap on Josh Allen. Why are the Bills going to figure it out? How is this season going to end for them?
Well, importantly, they fired their offensive coordinator, so that I guess really focus on who their new offensive coordinator is going to be. I didn't see any news on that, but who's going to be calling the play calls? So the Bills of the past, you give Stephon Diggs the ball, number one. Period, point blank. He doesn't get the ball, he becomes a crybaby. That ruins locker room and chemistry. So you get him the ball, he's going to make plays. Gabriel Davis was a great two punch in the sense that, all right, now we got to start double teaming Stephon Diggs. He's open wide and deep post streaks. He gets that. He's really good in that area. And then I think, although he fumbled the ball quite often last week, I think Cook is ready to take that step forward. He looked great when he would have the ball in his hands. But I really think it really depends on who's calling the plays for the Bills, because if they're able to get back to the more explosive plays, focus on Stephon Diggs, and then Cook just keeps running and running, and then you have the still backup running back with Murray to punch you into the end zone. Also, can't forget about my fantasy pickup this year, my tight end. Dalton Kincaid has saved me some games. He is seemed to be a weapon that they can use, and luckily, I think they'll be able to get it together. Yes, but that being said, I will run my lap and say, Josh Allen is looking like a fraud. All right, he's making bad plays. Yes, some of them are not on him because his receivers are dropping the ball, but I don't know, man. He's forcing some throws, and he's just one of those quarterbacks that throws the ball at about 1,000 miles per hour, and it's hard to catch those sometimes. Yes, you're an NFL receiver, but you have to be able to have a change-up ball, and I think this is one of the bigger things. A lot of quarterbacks lose that, like Baker, Jameis Winston, like Cam Newton when he was falling off a little bit. They just don't have that change-up ball, so.
Yeah, I think the Bills. I mean, if history is to again be any indicator, and if Sean McDermott is the coach that he's shown to be the last couple of years, I do think they turn it around. I don't think they are a bad team. I think they have too much talent on offense to be a bad team. Their injuries to defense are definitely hurting them, but it is interesting to see the Bills at 5-5. Nobody would have predicted that at the beginning of this year.
No,
Nobody.
Not at all.
No, couldn't.
One of the teams that sort of has kind of been on that cusp for us. I think this week they maybe the same week as we had them last week, but generally kind of in that. Are they real? Are they not? The Cowboys. I know everybody else talks about them all the time, but nobody they've beat has been a top or has had a winning record. Everyone that they've beat on their schedule has had a losing record. Every team that they've lost to, with the exception of the Arizona Cardinals, who are a terrible team, have been the good teams that they've played. Jerry, are the Cowboys for real? I mean, every time they play a crap opponent, they beat them by 1,000. And then when they go up against a quality opponent, like the 49ers, like the Eagles, they just don't seem to be able to show up in the big moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last 6 games of the season, week 18, they played the Commanders, but the 5 games before that are going to be the Seahawks, the Eagles, the Bills, the Dolphins, and then the Lions. So they will have plenty of opportunities to prove if they are a real team or not. You alluded to it. They whip up on the bad teams. I mean, they beat the Giants cumulative by like 60 points this year. Insane. Good job. You beat Danny DeVito. I guess it's always sunny in Dallas. You know where it's not always sunny? Actually, it is always sunny. In Philadelphia. Those guys can come out and beat the Cowboys. And then the 49ers, they kick their butts on Sunday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. So if the Cowboys really want to be a real team and really want to try for a Super Bowl this year, they have to beat the good teams. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. If you want to do it, prove me right against that first game against kind of the lesser teams in that category, being the Seahawks. I think, maybe the Bills. But I think the Seahawks are kind of also in that fraud territory. They've kind of, flopped against some better teams. But the Cowboys, show us you're real. Dak Prescott, show us that you can make the big plays. I also have you on my fantasy team, so I need you to pull through for me, homie. Come on, man. Come on, baby.
They just seem to always show up when it's the least important games and the games that you go, all right, here we go. We're big Cowboys fans now, and they just can't do it. They just can't show up. They crap themselves. So I think that's why we have them at that 9 spot. They have the potential to be a top 5 team, but right now, I just don't think they are. But I'll tell you who are the top 8 teams in the NFL. Here we go. Number 8, Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 7, Miami Dolphins. Number 6, the Ravens. Number 5, the Cleveland Browns. Number 4, the Lions. Number 3, the 49ers. Number 2, the Chiefs. And to no one's surprise, the best record in the NFL. Number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jason, considering both of us have teams in this top 10 echelon, I'll let you talk a little bit about the Jacksonville Jaguars. What has propelled them to be such a good team this year? I know last year they sort of were kind of figuring out with Dougie P, with Trevor Lawrence. This year it seems they've taken that step. Calvin Ridley's come back. I don't think he's been in any casinos lately. What has made the Trevor Lawrence experience, the Doug Peterson experience, so successful in Jacksonville?
I would say consistency out of the players. Again, other than our offensive line, I think everywhere we are pretty solid. Trevor Lawrence has shown that he can be a good quarterback, and if you would have told me before last week that we had the 31st worst offensive line, I wouldn't have realized, because I think his play has shown that he can carry this team, even if it wasn't as good as it is, to be successful. So, again, just consistency out of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I think that was the biggest issue with him his first 2 years. Obviously, the first year wasn't necessarily on him, but last year we saw some plays where he was forcing balls in the red zone, and instead of just running, he wouldn't make those plays. But he's making those plays this year. He's putting the ball right on the money. I think. Yes, Calvin Ridley being back is great, but I think Christian Kirk has had an amazing season. Evan Ingram has stepped it up, and again, still think Travis Etienne is one of those backs that can be a premier back in this league. So I think we're just getting consistency out of our offense and big plays from our defense. So while we might not shut them out like the Browns do, we are able to get turnovers, kind of like the Cowboys, and I think that shows another step that we've are better on defense as well.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think the Jaguars hit a buzzsaw on the 49ers this week. I don't think it's indicative of anything. I think they're going to bounce right back and be successful. You look at some of these other teams, the Dolphins, high-flying offense, haven't beat really a good team yet. The Ravens, inconsistent, can't close out the fourth quarter. The Cleveland Browns, they're at number 5 on our list. This power ranking was made before the news today that Deshaun Watson is out for the rest of the season. I don't know how much it would have affected, maybe only a couple spots, mainly due to the fact that the Browns are 6-3 in spite basically of Deshaun Watson, his inconsistency at starting. Our offensive line is fantastic. Our defense is number 1 in the NFL. Historically great defense. Jim Schwartz has saved that side of the football. We knew we had the talent. We are now showing that talent. I think on the offensive side of the ball, we're using a committee of running backs. We haven't had much of a drop off with the loss of the best running back in the NFL and the loss of both of our starting tackles. So we definitely have a resiliency and haven't faced adversity that most of the teams haven't faced. But it'll all be dependent on if Dorian Thompson-Robinson can answer the call. He's a 5th-round rookie out of UCLA. Did not look good in his first start, but he didn't know he was starting until about 90 minutes before the game started. So we'll see this weekend against the Steelers. We'll see if that Browns team wavers at all on those power rankings. Kind of moving up the line, we got the Lions. They're pretty solid. 49ers good. Chiefs good. But the Eagles, 8-1, best record in football. Fly, Eagles, fly. Jerry, what makes the Eagles so dominant? Why are they basically the unanimous number 1 team on every single power ranking?
They are just all around good. They got the best offensive line in the league. A quarterback who's vying for an MVP spot. They got weapons in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, a pretty good tight end, Dallas Goedert. They have DeAndre Swift, who can break it out of the backfield. And then you stack that on top of a defense that can get to the quarterback like no other. They have big play Darius Slay at corner, who can shut down pretty much anybody in the league. And, of course, Nick Sirianni had the bright idea of coming up with the tush push, which is the most unstoppable play in football right now. Every team is trying to copy it. Other teams have, some sort of success with it, but nothing like what Jason Kelce, Jalen Hurts, and A.J. Brown can do AJ Brown's behind him, pushing him right in the butt. Jason Kelsey's on the bottom of the pile in a rugby formation, probably gasping for his life at the bottom. And Jalen Hurts, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Anytime touchdown from the 1 yard line, Jalen Hurts all day long. It's unstoppable, and they're proving that they can that they are beating teams with it. Beating the Cowboys. They have the Chiefs this week. It's going to be a huge game, huge spot for. I mean, it's going to be whoever wins that game is probably going to be number one in our power rankings next week. But we'll talk about that game later. But yeah, the Eagles just on another level right now.
They really are, and like Nick Sirianni said, every new set of downs is 1st and 9 because they know they got that extra yard. Always. It's unstoppable. It's akin to watching Michael Vick play. You know he's going to bust him off. You know that tush push is going to get you 2 yards every single time. It's unstoppable. And I think the Eagles remain atop our NFL power rankings. These have been our NFL power rankings. If you disagree with them, you're wrong. And
argue with us on Twitter.
Going into this week, we have some pretty amazing matchups. I think it starts off in that the week starts off on Thursday night. We'll get to that in a minute. But on Sunday, it starts off in that 1 o'clock window. We have the Steelers coming to Cleveland. The Browns are -4. Is that still correct? I think the line moved to maybe.
It might have moved. I apologize. This was made yesterday before the Deshaun Watson news. I can pull up what the actual line is now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's either -3.5 or -2.5. Not too much has changed. That's basically because I think Vegas agrees the defense, actually for both of these squads, have really what's been propelling them forward.
-1.5 now for the Browns.
Oh, it's -1.5.
And the over/under is 32.5. So they're really hammering the defense.
Under.
Yeah.
Under.
Yeah.
Again, rookie starting quarterback for the Browns, DTR. I'll say this is his first real start. I know everyone puts the Baltimore game as his first start. He threw 3 picks for 126 yards, 0 touchdowns. He was atrocious, but he was playing the number 2 defense, number 1 scoring defense in the NFL, and it was his first start. With not knowing he was starting this week, he'll actually have practice with the ones. Jason, how do you see this game going? Do you think the Browns, with that backup quarterback, have a chance at home against the Steelers, whose defense has been statistically not great but very opportunistic?
I think. I guess let me ask you this: are your tackles back this week? Do you have Draymond?
Jedrick Will's out still. DeJuan Jones is questionable, so we'll see.
So I think if you have your tackles back, I think you have nothing to worry about. DeJuan Jones is, in my opinion, the top 5 run blocking tackle in this league because of his size alone. So you'll be able to run the ball on them. That being said, I do think with a week of prep, I think we'll see more of the DTR that we got in the preseason. I think he just was nervous and not ready to play that week he played. So I think we'll see a lot more running from him as well. Like, get him out of the pocket, let him use his legs, because that's where he was most electric in the preseason. So if you focus on the run, I think you guys are fine. So to be honest, I think the Browns still get this game. Their defense is too good, and the Steelers are offense. It throws a bunch of duds up. So I think you guys will be fine with good defensive play.
Are you just saying that because you're my friend? You
don't I'm not.
Make me feel good. I've been crying to myself all day.
Listen, I think
he's been crying to himself for the past 27 years.
I don't know how the Steelers do it. I think they get lucky a lot of times, but.
Negative point differential, 6-3. Outgained in every single game,
right?
6-3. Jerry, do they find a way to keep the black magic alive and somehow pull out a win? Are the Steelers going to beat the Browns there at was it First Energy Stadium? I should probably know the name.
I think it's just stadium. Cleveland Browns Stadium now. I think they changed it. But no, I don't think so. We know what we're getting out of the Steelers. Matt Canada should have been fired 5 weeks ago.
Hey, he's on the field now, Jerry. He's down on the field.
Great.
He feels the players, right? He knows what's going on.
Great. Yeah, no, we know what we're getting out of them. You said it earlier. They're outgained in every single game this year. Every single game, and they're still finding a way to win games, but I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think the Browns are going to have a lot of success keeping the ball on the ground. I think DTR has the big play ability. We kind of saw it in the preseason. And you said it earlier, he's got a lot more prep to work with this week. And I don't think Kevin Stefanski would have made the decision to start DTR over PJ Walker if he didn't see something in him, right? So I think
we don't have a first round pick, so we can't tank. So
Fact.
it has to be he sees something. I'm hoping
he sees something. And the Browns have proved they can win without Deshaun Watson. They beat the 49ers, they beat the Colts, almost beat the Seahawks without Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was in for a quarter against the Colts, but I think they'll get it done.
And let's just also point out that backup quarterbacks for the Browns this year have thrown 1 touchdown to 8 interceptions. The Deshaun Watson has not played significant minutes in 4 games this year. We are 6-3, and only 2 of those losses came without Deshaun Watson. So it is possible. I do agree. The other 1:00 kind of marquee matchup is a little bit of a down week in the NFL this week, but we have the Raiders, who are at 500 right now, 5-5, going to play the Dolphins in Miami. The line is at 11.5 points. Oh my goodness. Over under 46.5. Jerry, are the Raiders going to be able to keep up with that electric Dolphins offense? Or are the Dolphins just going to boat race them?
It's going to be a slaughter, minus 11.5. I think the Cowboys were minus 17.5 against the Giants with
largest in the NFL.
The largest in the NFL, and this is only 6 points less than that. The Dolphins, their offense is just on nitrous 24/7. They're just the fastest team in the league. Watching them run the RPO is one of the cleanest things I've ever seen. With Achane and Mostert out of the backfield and Tyreek Hill doing his little swing motion, and then you have Jalen Waddle running a slant over the middle. It's one of the cleanest things I've ever seen. They're moving at max speed. There's no way the Raiders have the firepower. I know they have Devontae Adams. I know Max Crosby is a great player. He can get to the quarterback. It's just not meant to be this week.
What makes the Dolphins so dangerous offensively, but then they can't? Well, why is that replicatable? I think that's a word. Who knows?
Sure.
Why can't they replicate that against good teams in the NFL, or has it just been kind of a bad bounce, Jason?
I'm going to go with more of the bad bounce. Turnovers. Yes, you could be fast, but if you can't hold on to the ball, what does it matter? Some of the fumbles that Tyreek Hill had, the one fumble that Tyreek Hill had to win the game, was pretty bad. So I don't think they continue with that. I don't think I haven't seen like a fumble issue out of these players, so I don't think it'll continue. But that being said, bad bounce. The reason why it wasn't against those better teams is, again, I think they were not smart with the ball. So if they focus on that, they're too fast to be stopped. So like you said, nitrous 24/7. So it's like, yeah.
I believe like the fastest 5 players in the NFL all play for the Miami Dolphins. That should not be allowed. The last guy.
One thing real quick. Did you see that they signed Anthony Schwartz this week?
Oh my
because
God.
He's fast.
Actually, no.
That's the only reason.
Tyreek Hill's the fastest. Waddle might be the second fastest.
Anthony Schwartz, for those that don't know, used to play for the Cleveland Browns, played this for 3 seasons. He was terrible. His hands are made of bricks, but he runs a 4.26 40. So who better to put him on than the Miami Dolphins? I'm sure Mike McDaniels will find better ways to get him the ball, but that's just absurd. Our last matchup we're going to talk about before we get into that Thursday night game is going to be the Monday night game. Super Bowl rematch, Eagles at Chiefs. Chiefs -3 at home. Interesting. Over under at 46.5. I find that line actually interesting. I think the Eagles have been a much more dominant team than the Chiefs have. even though they are at home, I figured that would almost be a pick 'em, strictly because the Chiefs are at home. The Eagles seem to be playing a much better brand of football right now, at least across the board. The Chiefs' defense is absurd, but they have no firepower, it seems, on offense outside of Travis Kelsey, Travis Swift. Some people are calling him. Uh, Jason, first of all, who do you have in this game?
The
And
Eagles.
second of all, you got the Eagles.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead with the second question.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. That's what's great about a podcast. It's free form. We're having a conversation. Um, why do you have what about the Eagles? Um, do you think will propel them over that Chiefs dominant defense? And do you think what about again on the flip side of the ball? Basically, what key factors of the game leads you to believe the Eagles will win this game?
While the Chiefs do have a dominant defense, I think the Eagles have a more dominant defense. So when you can focus on Travis Kelsey, it opens up for for Patrick Mahomes to you force him to make better plays to get his balls to the receivers. Now he can, don't get me wrong, he can make those plays. He can make those plays for sure. But that being said, I don't think the Eagles will struggle as much on offense as the Chiefs will against the Eagles defense. So another thing, AJ Brown has looked like an animal. Devontae Smith hasn't even slightly touched on what he can do. We saw one big play from the last game he played. I think they're going to rely on him a little bit more now, and you will see more big plays from him. Goddard has been solid, and then their offensive line again is the best offensive line in the league. So everywhere, I've had the Eagles number one since day one, and they proved me right. So I think. Yeah, I think the Eagles will win this game. It will be an over for sure on that number, like easy pick 'em, but I think the Eagles pull out the victory.
Shout out to the Eagles for carrying Jason's number one through the whole year. Jerry, who's your pick for this game? And do you think the Chiefs are they going to turn that corner on offense? It's odd. This is Patrick Mahomes' worst statistical season yet, the best defense he's ever had. What sort of outcome do you see for this game?
I'm actually going to go against the grain on Jason here. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'll take them on the points -3. I think they've had struggles when defenses are able to stop Travis Kelsey, right? He's the cornerstone of that offense. He's the guy who gets it done. Their wide receivers aren't anything to write home about. Honestly, kind of a bunch of bums. Like Sky Moore has dropped a lot of balls this year. I know Pacheco has the ability to get out in the open field, but he hasn't been, what he was in the playoffs last year. But Travis Kelsey is coming back from Argentina after seeing his lovely girlfriend Taylor Swift, unfortunately. So I think he's going to have a big game, a big game this week. I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to hold him down like teams have been able to do the past couple of weeks. And I think Patrick Mahomes finally turns the corner. I think he's going to have a big game, 300 plus. I'm thinking 2+ touchdowns passing. Not to say that the Eagles aren't going to make it competitive. I do think it could come down to the last drive, maybe even into overtime. But I think the Chiefs are going to be able to pull this out and get a statement win.
Yeah, it just feels like to me one of those games where Eagles have been playing better. The Chiefs are the Chiefs, and they're going to come to play. Andy Reid's going to put together a game plan. I hate to root against the Eagles, but Patrick Mahomes he's just too good. He hasn't had that, I feel like, standout marquee win this year. I think this will be the game. Give me also the Chiefs. That leads us into Thursday Night Football on Amazon
Prime.
Yeah, exactly. Prime. The Ravens at home -3.5. That seems about right. I feel like both of these teams coming off of close, tough, last-second field goal losses. Both teams vying for playoff position in the AFC North. Should be a excellent game. Should be a real kind of down in the mud fight. Beat each other the heck up. And see who the last guy standing is. Uh, Jerry, do you think which team do you think bounces back this week?
I think it's going to be closer than 3.5. I think an AFC North matchup. These two teams always play each other tight. I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens will get the edge, but we're talking about, 2 games last week where the Browns had the opportunity to throw away the game so many times, and the Ravens kind of just let the Browns have it, right? And then you also have Tyler Boyd dropping a touchdown in the end zone against the Texans. Forces them to settle for a field goal. CJ Stroud goes down the field and, they kick field goal to win the game. Not to say, the Texans don't come back and win that game. CJ Stroud gets a touchdown to win the game. But those 2 games were very close, and, these 2 teams could have very different records coming into this week. But they don't. So I think the Ravens are trying to stay atop the AFC North, and I think they'll be able to do it. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to have a big game. I think Burrow will also play well, but I think the Ravens squeak it out in the end.
Yeah, interesting food for thought. If the Bengals can beat the Ravens at home, which back-to-back home losses for the Ravens would be tough. But if the Bengals can beat the Ravens, the winner of Sunday's matchup between the Steelers and the Browns takes first place in the AFC North. Absolutely absurd division. Wouldn't be surprised if all of them are in the playoffs. Probably won't happen, but it could. And then I really think that the Bengals have a little bit more of that to prove momentum. I think the Ravens, the way they've lost this season has always been in the fourth quarter. They haven't been able to put games away. I think the Bengals are really kind of on that up and up. They lost to a very good Texans team that's hot. CJ Stroud is really hot right now. I don't think it's quite the same way as blowing a 14-point fourth quarter lead to a guy with a broken shoulder and a high ankle sprain. So I personally think the Bengals come out here. I think Joe Burrow has an excellent day. He always plays the Ravens really, really well. I think the Bengals beat the Ravens at home. And this leads us into probably our favorite segment we have, JJ's Moonshot Bet of the Week. Jason, go ahead and give him the parameters.
All right. We might have missed last week, but we gonna.
You can't count that. We didn't have anyone watching yet. I mean,
I bet on it and I lost money, so it's a loss.
Listen. Last week we had a bunch of bad teams playing. This week we have 2 good teams playing. So this week we're gonna hit. Even though it's plus 20,000, don't worry about it. Don't look at that. Just work at the money.
Jason, what was that? What was that plus odds again?
Plus 20,000.
Okay. For those at home, that means if you bet $100, we do not recommend betting $100. I'm saying
gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yes, this is how odds work. If you bet $100 and this hits, you win $20,288. Maybe just put $1.50, whatever you can.
$5, put $1, put $10 on it like I did. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Whatever units you're comfortable with.
We're aiming
for the
Jason.
Moon. Go ahead, Jason. Aiming for the moon. What do we got?
All right, let me tell you what we got here. We have Lamar Jackson, alternate passing plus 200. Obviously gonna hit. We have Joe Burrow, 225 alternate plus. I think these are easy hits. I think it's going to be a shootout. Both quarterbacks are going to be throwing the ball a lot. We'll see a lot of yardage. So that was even just the safe side of that. Joe Burrow, 2+ touchdowns. I think they're going to rely more on Joe Burrow this week. Again, like Ryan says, the Ravens, they play them very well. We have Tyler Boyd, 25+ yards. Tyler Boyd becomes the second receiver this week. So I think he's going to hit those. We have Jamar Chase, anytime touchdown. Again, Jamar Chase without his second receiver. I think he's the focus in the offense. He's going to get that touchdown. All right, then let's see what else we got. We have Lamar Jackson, 1+ passing touchdown.
Don't let him cook.
We have Lamar Jackson, 1+ touchdown. I think again, another thing is going to be a shootout. We've been seeing better plays from the receiver core. I think we get one receiving touchdown. Plus, Mark Andrews is his favorite target. Where's Mark Andrews best at in the red zone? Zay Flowers over 4.5 receptions. Easy hit. Zay Flowers is shown to be the number one receiver on this team. I think he's been hitting at least 4 to 5 each game for the last 4 weeks, I think. Mark Andrews 40 alternative receiving yards. Again, this is easy. This is cake. That's a walk in the park. Gus Edwards 25 rushing yards. Gus Edwards isn't going to have that big of a role, I think, this week. I think Keaton Mitchell takes the leading role, is going to be their main guy. But that being said, Gus Edwards is still their sub back. He's going to get 25 yards. And what else is he going to get, guys?
Anytime
touchdown. And you know why? Because since Gus Edwards has been the leading back, or been in a leading role, with the injuries to Dobbins and the injuries to Mitchell, what's his name?
Justice Hill?
Justice Hill, thank you. Has hit for a touchdown in the last 3 weeks. So please believe me on this one. This one's going to hit. All right. Mark Andrews also 4 receptions. We have Keaton Mitchell over 30 and 36 and a half. That's his line. Again, I think Keaton Mitchell is going to be the leading back this week. I think he might run one of his attempts will go for this because that man is explosive, fast, athletic. He's just gifted. I think he'll hit for that for sure. And then we have Jamar Chase over 83.5 receiving yards. Again, Jamar Chase is the focus in this offense this week. He's going to hit his over. And Zay Flowers for 51.5. Again, Zay Flowers, number one receiver. Good focus. He's going to have the catches. He's going to have the yards. We hit. We all make money. It's easy peasy.
Yeah.
Next week, it's going to show 1-1.
Hey, let's bankrupt.
It's free money. It's probably free for the sports book, but it's free.
Hey, no. Again, my DGens know.
I would like. This is absurd. I just want to point out. I'm pretty sure last week was like in the plus 2,000 range. Which
it's like 5,000 something.
Plus 5,000. Absurd. Yep. 4 times less likely to happen this
and
week.
It's still gonna more like.
I believe in this one more than last week.
Just
because of the teams playing.
2 bad teams. 2 good teams. Like, we hit this week. Trust me.
All right. Plus 20,000, folks. That's it right there. Again, if you have a gambling problem, what is it called? 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, this is absurd. So just remember that. All right. I think we're going to shift gears here and talk a little bit about college football. So much different than the NFL. A lot less controversy at the top, I think. I think you start to see a lot of the controversy from the college football playoff rankings towards the middle. There has been a little bit of change at the what they've come out with. I think we've changed a little bit as well. Go ahead and reveal our top 10, Jerry. Right now at number 10, we have Penn State. Number 9, Louisville. Number 8, Texas. Number 7, Florida State. Number 6, Alabama. Number 5, Oregon. Number 4, Washington. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 2, Michigan. And number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. Jerry, I know you're the one in our group here that's been different than Jason and I. Jeez, sorry, I'm fumbling over my words here. Jason and I have been consistent, and I know. I feel like I've done decent so far.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty bad. Not gonna lie.
Sorry, we can cut that part out.
Yeah, no, we can't. It's live. So, every week that we've been discussing these top 10, I know this is our first actual show, but you've had Ohio State at that number 1 spot every week. What makes Ohio State the number 1 team in the country for you? And as 2 Ohio State fans, which you are not, by the way, Jason and I are Ohio State fans, I find that surprising. Why is Ohio State number 1 to you?
Yeah, so Ohio State was kind of the first team to get one of those statement wins. Not playing a bunch of sisters school of the blind teams. They come out beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame. Um, on the last play of the game, huge win, and then they absolutely take care of Penn State at home and absolutely just dominate them. Since those games, they've pretty much again taken care of business. Last week against Michigan State, I think it was like 28-3 at the end of the first quarter. Who knew that getting the ball to Marvin Harrison, arguably the best player in the nation right now, is good for your team. I think he had 3 touchdowns on Saturday night. The guy is, and we'll get into it later, but got to be one of the top front runners for the Heisman. But I think those 2 statement wins, along with taking care of business against bad teams, puts them in my number 1 spot. Georgia, pretty close there with their win this weekend against Ole Miss. They absolutely dominated Ole Miss. If they continue to play the way that they're playing, they could make a jump. But that's why Ohio State's got to be in the top spot for me.
Jason, you and I both had Georgia at number 1, I believe, looking at this list here. Why is Georgia in that top spot for you? And what do you think? Like, is there anything that could change in that? Obviously, if they lose, it could change. Do you think a game like when Ohio State and Michigan play each other, would that be enough to put them over Georgia? Or do you think that Georgia pretty much has that number 1 spot locked down to the SEC championship game, as long as they continue to win in emphatic fashion as they have so far?
No, I think it's still really close with the top 3 for me. I do believe that they shown that they were the number 1 team, and that with Brock Bowers back, that they are still a dominant team and can beat good teams. That's why they took the jump over Michigan. I think first half Michigan wasn't that good. I know a lot of people were like, they had to run the ball 26 times in a row, but they ran the ball 26 times in a row and still beat a good Penn State team.
Yeah, they didn't lose.
Yeah, dude, with not great quarterback play, they still won the game, and I think that's what is impressive to me. So I also, like Jerry said with Ohio State, I think we shown that we can play from start to finish, and we put our bench players in the third quarter. Like, it was an impressive game from all of us. So I do believe Georgia had the better win. But that being said, I do think it's still close enough to where the winner for the Ohio State Michigan game can still jump Georgia.
Yeah, I think I'm going to disagree with you a touch just on that. I don't think J.J. McCarthy played a bad game. He was 7 for 8 for 60 yards. I think the defensive end and the pressure that Penn State, the speed of their defense and how well they can get around that edge, forced Michigan to just say, okay, stop us up the middle. We don't think you can, so I understand what you're saying. I just think it's less about J.J. McCarthy and more about how good that Penn State defense really is, how long that defensive end, how fast they are. Of the teams in this top 10, which again, just like our NFL power rankings, we came up with this top 10 the exact same way. Every other top 10, not as good as our top 10. This is the official top 10. If the college football playoff was serious, they would consult our top 10 before they released theirs to make sure they were right. So of these top 10 teams, where is the cutoff line? What team can absolutely not make it into the college football playoff? And what that last team that you pick, what makes them able to slide in? Go ahead, Jason.
That's a great question. I would say it would have to be cut off at Alabama. Oh, sorry, Florida State. I had Florida State at 6, I believe. Anyways, I would put the cutoff at Florida State. I don't think Texas with the 1 loss can win. Who's going to match up with them in the Big 12 championship game? Is it going to be impressive enough to overcome that one loss? No, I don't think so. I think Florida State being undefeated obviously still has a chance. Alabama even one loss. I think if they beat Georgia, obviously, who are you going to put in over them? I don't, other than Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, if Washington were to win out. But again, Washington and Oregon still have a chance to play in the Pac-12. So I think all those teams are still fighting to the playoffs. After that, I don't see anyone sliding in.
Jerry, for the top 10 for you, where's that cutoff and why?
I gotta put the cutoff a lot lower. I'm gonna put it at Louisville. I think Louisville and Penn State, no shot. Penn State with 2 losses, to Michigan and Ohio State this year, it kind of takes them out. Louisville, I don't see them being, having a chance. Mainly because
A win over Florida State in the ACC championship.
Mainly because I think Florida State is going to go undefeated, and that's where I think it's going to get sticky because Michigan and Ohio State obviously play this year. One of those teams is going to have one loss. If Florida State and Washington both go undefeated, unfortunately, Michigan and Ohio State, I do think, are 2 of the best 3 teams in the nation. If one of those, whichever team loses that game, if Washington and Florida State go undefeated, they're not getting in, which is terrible. I can't wait for the 12-team playoff next year. It's going to make it a lot better. And I do think with Florida State going undefeated, they're not on the same level, but they play in such a bad conference, right? The ACC is by far the worst conference in the nation this year. Maybe with the Big 12, but because they play in such a bad conference and they are by far the best team in that conference, they're going to go undefeated and I think sneak into the playoff. That being said, if they don't, then Texas and Alabama both have a shot to get in there. So I think that's why you're cutting off at Louisville. Mainly because the ACC is just such a bad conference.
Okay, so food for thought. Last question, then we'll move on. But Louisville, let's say Georgia, Ohio State, Washington all remain undefeated, 12-0. They're going to I guess would that be 12 or 13-0?
13 with the conference.
13-0 with the conference championship. Louisville beats Florida State in the ACC championship game. Texas beats let's say Kansas State or whoever the number 2 ends up being, Oklahoma, whoever it is. Texas wins. Okay, so you have a 12-1 Big 12 champ, 12-1 ACC champ, Louisville, Texas. Who's getting in?
It's got to be Texas.
All right, and then to parlay, or Jason, do you agree?
I agree.
All right, and then Texas loses, 2 losses. All right, so you have a 1-loss Louisville, 12-1, and you have a Michigan or Ohio State at that 1 loss. Who gets in?
I'm putting Ohio State in my opinion. Better
resume.
resume.
Over a 1-loss conference champ with the win.
Absolutely.
At the time, be a top 4 team?
Absolutely.
That happened. Did that not happen last year?
I'm sorry.
I know Ohio State and Michigan both got in. But
that was because Utah had 2 losses.
Yes.
And they beat USC, forced them to 2 losses. So this would be a 1-loss non-conference champ getting in over a 1-loss conference champ.
Let me correct what I'm saying. Depending on how they lose, obviously if it's a blowout, then no, the other team's going to go in. But if it's a down to the last second, Michigan or Ohio State, I believe deserves to be in that conference playoffs because. Again, I think they were focusing on more of the eye look and better team, better chance to get in the playoffs. So I think we've shown that we are better than those teams. And as long as we keep it close against Michigan, I think we deserve to be in there over those teams. Or vice versa. God, Ohio State's going to win the game. That's all I'm saying. So Michigan.
Dang right. We don't give a dang.
About the whole state.
Go ahead. I thought you were gonna sing it.
Of Michigan, the whole state of Michigan.
Yeah.
That's all I got. I can't sing, so I can't put my vocals on this mic,
No, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah, I think a lot. There's a lot of college football to be played, a lot of really good games to be played, and a lot of big stages to play in. And I think that leads us into our next topic, the Heisman race. The top three right now: number one, Michael Penix; number two, Jaden Daniels; and number three, Marvin Harrison Jr. Uh, Two of those three, I think, have really big stages to play in. Jaden Daniels is just playing unbelievable football. What makes Michael Penix really that front runner, Jerry?
I mean, obviously he's leading a 10-0 Washington team right now. He's got a huge matchup this week, but he's already played a couple of tough opponents in Utah and Oregon and showed that he can ball out with the best of them. He's leading the nation in passing yards right now, 28 to 7 touchdown to interception ratio, and again, you pair it with that undefeated record, it's hard to go against him. The lefty with experience really really balling out this year.
Do you think Jaden Daniels, Jason, really has a shot to take that number one spot, or is it basically Michael Penix's to lose?
I think, unfortunately, I don't think Jaden Daniels will be able to win the Heisman due to his team. That being said, he definitely deserves to be in that room. 350 yards, quarterback. First time ever a quarterback has ever thrown for 350 yards and run for 200 in a game. Insane. It's insane. Will it ever happen again? Probably not. Like, never heard of. We haven't seen it from anyone, even with quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson. So I think that kudos to him to even get on this list with 3 losses. But unfortunately, I do not think he'll be able to overcome the first pick.
Yeah, absolutely absurd numbers from him in the last win. I think the last guy on that list, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's the best player in college football. I think pretty much everyone agrees. I think the only thing with him is he's reliant on Kyle McCord to get him the ball. He's reliant on several other factors. Ohio State has to win the game against Michigan, has to win the Big Ten championship, and he has to have gotten enough targets in that game. His, I think, is the most unlikely of the three, but I do think he is the all around best player in college football. Now, we all have our sleeper picks. We're coming to the end of the season. Everyone's playing each other. Stars are beginning to emerge, and last minute people sliding into this Heisman talk, the Heisman race. We've all picked one. Jason, lead us off. Who is your number one sleeper pick going in to the end of the NCAA football season?
I got to double up with the running back that's leading the nation in touchdowns, Blake Corum. So he has 18 touchdowns. 18 touchdowns. And that is playing a lot of games with only like a half of play. Like, they're beating teams pretty bad. So I think he is missing a lot of attempts. So the next highest is 15. And then again, I think with these next 2 games, they're leaving him in and going to let him play out, especially against Ohio State. He's going to be showing some stuff. So, unfortunately, I hate to do it as an Ohio State fan, but I got to give it to Blake Corum.
Yeah, he's definitely balling out, and he's not having quite the season he had last year as far as all the media attention. But man, he's putting the ball in the end zone, and it's not like he's playing. Yeah, he's really Donovan Edwards is getting a lot of his snaps. So what he's been doing has been that much more impressive. Jerry, your sleeper pick for the Heisman Trophy goes to.
Well, Jason, Blake Corum is real nice. I ain't gonna argue with you on that. But the Heisman Trophy award is a quarterback award.
Of course.
Blake
of
Corum
course.
is not a quarterback. So I got to give it to the dude in the Pac 12 right behind Penix. It's Bo Nix, quarterback for the Oregon Ducks. Dude has 29 touchdowns and 2 picks this year. 29 touchdowns and 2 picks. Just absolutely absurd. He's taking care of the football. He's got a 77% completion rating or completion percentage right now. That is unheard of in college football. Pair it with a 9-1 record, his only loss to the lefty himself, Michael Penix. He's got a real chance in the Pac-12 championship if they happen to get there, which I think they will. He's got a big game against Oregon State next week in the rivalry. But he's got to be in the conversation, to say the least.
To add to that, one second. To add to that, I think other than Jaden Daniels, I think Bo Nix had the best game
Oh
last
yeah,
week.
yeah. 2 for 2, 161 yards and 2
Yeah.
touchdowns. That was
That's
his
strong.
stat line in the first two
First
drives.
first two passes, pretty impressive. Uh, I have to agree with Jerry on the fact that unfortunately the Heisman it just is. It's a quarterback award. And unlike Jerry's quarterback, my quarterback is undefeated still.
Never lost.
Has not lost this season. My sleeper pick for this year's Heisman is Jordan Travis, quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles. Give me a little bit of that Seminoles.
Oh.
Exactly. He's thrown for over 2,700 yards, 27 total touchdowns, only 2 interceptions this season. And while they've found ways to win, it hasn't been the prettiest. They've found ugly ways to win. He's been consistent through it all, and he has willed his team to be undefeated at this point. They basically outside of they have 2 easy weeks and then the ACC championship against a good Louisville team. He has the opportunity, the stages, and he can have his team undefeated in the playoffs with an amazing numbers and resume. I mean, I really think, especially if he turns it on in that ACC championship game, he really could be one of the top guys to sneak in there and take the Heisman. So that ends our Heisman talk. If you think that there's anyone else that we are not discussing, go ahead and put that in the comments. We do have some marquee matchups this weekend. This is kind of these last 2 weeks. We have a couple good games this week, and we have a couple really good games next week, and then it'll be championship weekend after that. This weekend, the first game we have is Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia minus 10.5 at number 18 Tennessee. By the way, the rankings we list for these are what the college football playoff ranked them as, not what we rank them as. We figured we'd be consistent, even though a lot of times they are wrong. But right now they have Georgia minus 10.5 on the road at Tennessee in Neyland Stadium. That number feels about right to me. I think Georgia's, again, we had them at number 1. I think they're the most dominant team in the country. I think Tennessee is way overranked. I think they are the highest ranked 3-loss team right now, and they've lost to Florida. They have not been very good this year. I'm not exactly sure why they're number 18 in my opinion, but is there any way there's a little bit of Tennessee magic, kind of like in the Alabama game last year for this Tennessee Georgia game, Jerry, or is Georgia just too good?
No.
Too dominant.
No, I'm actually going to disagree with you. I'm surprised that spread is not higher. I think Georgia is playing that well right now. I mean, absolutely smacking Ole Miss last week. And Tennessee did not look good against Missouri. Joe Milton did not play like Joe Milton usually does. I know he's kind of a wild card. But Georgia's just playing a different brand of football right now. They're number 1 in our rankings for a reason. They're number 1 in the college football playoff rankings for a reason. Back-to-back defending champs. There's no way Tennessee. I know it's at Neyland Stadium, which maybe that gives them the 10.5 point spread. Georgia is going to run away with this one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 3-score game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Tennessee responds at home. Jason, your thoughts? Does Georgia really just absolutely dog walk the Volunteers, or do the Volunteers have a chance in this one?
Again, they got Brock Bowers back, who, in my opinion, is the second best player in the league right now, so in the nation right now. So I don't think they stand a chance. Georgia's offense is only looking like it's going to get better. And yeah, no, Tennessee does not have a chance.
I have to agree. I think Georgia's just too dominant. Our other big game for this upcoming week, it's another top 15 matchup. We have number 5 Washington on the road at Oregon State. The line only minus 2.5. That's very interesting. Oregon State, one of the most they're just reliant on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. They rank in top 10 and several different, or I'm sorry, top 15 in several different offensive categories. Obviously, Washington's offense is extremely dominant and overpowering. I minus 2.5. That's legit?
That is correct.
Oregon
Yes.
State is favored
Yes.
over Washington.
Yes.
Plus 108.
Yeah. Washington plus
Washington.
108 money line.
That does not seem. I don't agree with this one. I think DJ, however you say his last name, former Clemson quarterback, I think he's a good player, but I don't think he can compete with Michael Penix. Jason, why is Oregon State favored?
Vegas, tell me. I wish I knew, because maybe I wouldn't have put $25 on it.
Free money.
Oh, they're up to plus 114 now.
Okay, well, put another 20. Double up.
Double down, baby.
Double down. Gamble responsibly. Anyways, I couldn't tell you. I think Oregon State. I think Vegas thinks that Oregon State has a better overall team, but again, Washington's offense is too electric. I think again, outside of the top three teams, I don't think anyone else other than Washington has a side of football that can compete with those teams. And Washington's offense is stacked from top to bottom. They have a good offensive line. They have a top three quarterback. They have a running back that's emerging and looking dominant. They have two of the top 5 receivers. What more can you ask for? I have no idea.
Yeah, it is a little bit perplexing. I think Washington's defense is their only question mark, but their offense is so high powered. It is a little bit surprising that they're dogs, even if they are on the road. Jerry, do you have any explanation for why this is the case? And I mean, honestly, like as soon as this is over, I'm going to go put some money on Washington.
Absolutely. I could not believe it. I think Jason texted it to the group chat earlier, maybe yesterday. When I saw that, and then I went and saw Oregon 2.5. How are you going to give the line of minus 2.5 or plus 2.5 to a team that's undefeated, vying for a college football playoff spot, has beaten some top teams in their own conference in USC, Utah, and Oregon, who is arguably playing better football than them right now, and have them be dogs on the road to Oregon State, who's a 2-loss team, and their 2 losses are Arizona and Washington State. What are we doing here? What are we doing here?
It does not make much sense to me. I think right now we're all in agreement. Hammer the Huskies.
Yeah, that's actually free money.
But again, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, gambling, whatever it is. I don't have a problem. That's why I don't know what it is. Moving on, I think we're going to do a little bit of a preview of 2 weeks from now. We got 2 massive games, 2 huge teams on big collision courses. Michigan and Ohio State set to meet in Ann Arbor. We'll do a lot more of a dive into the game next week, but you're talking about 2 of the best teams in college football right now meeting up. Right now, the narrative is going to be sign stealing versus is Ryan Day a good head coach? That's going to be kind of the narrative swirling around. You have 2 very physical defenses. You have 2 amazing players, and well, actually, there's several amazing players on both sides. But you have Marvin Harrison Jr. on Ohio State, and you have J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum on Michigan. It's going to be quite the matchup, and I really can't wait to watch. Jerry, I know you really have, other than just watching good football, you don't have much invested, or I guess the word would be vested, in either of these teams. What are you looking forward to the most in this game, and what are you thinking about this rivalry matchup?
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how Michigan is going to respond in a big game without Jim Harbaugh. I know they played Penn State last week, and and went into Happy Valley, beat them. Is it in the Big House this year?
Yeah.
It's in the Big House. Okay, so they'll be at home. Ohio State, obviously, biggest rivalry arguably in sports across professional, college, however you want to put it. Um, how are they going to respond without Jim Harbaugh? Uh, Obviously, they've proven that they can keep the ball on the ground with Blake Corum, running it 26 straight times and still dominate the field. I don't think Ohio State is going to let that happen. Ohio State's defense is on is on another level. Sonny Styles, you want to talk about a guy that can lay the hammer? Sonny Styles is that guy. He is that guy.
Lord,
But
money.
that front four of Ohio State is not going to let that happen. They proved against Penn State that they're not going to let it happen, and I think they'll do the same against Michigan. And it's also been nice to see. There were a lot of questions about the quarterback position at Ohio State coming into the season with Kyle McCord. I think he's really coming to his own, figuring out that he can throw the ball to Marvin Harrison has really stepped his game up. But it's going to be a great game. I think Michigan's had their number the past couple of years, but I think this one's going to be a lot tighter than people are expecting.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. It's going to be so exciting. I'm going to be extremely stressed out watching it. Jason, as my fellow Ohio State fan on the program, are you worried? Do you think we can pull? It's going to be an upset. Michigan's going to be favored at home, even without Jim Harbaugh. Are we going to be able to pull out the upset? Do we have the defense this year to do it? What are you looking forward to most in this game?
Um, on offense, I would say I'm looking more forward to Travion being healthy. I think he is finally coming into, and if he played all of last game, I think we would have saw a top five performance from him as well. But that being said, how will Michigan handle Marvin Harrison? That's what I really want to see. Are you going to double team him? Are you going to shed the safety over? What are you going to do? Because as you saw last week, if you single coverage that guy, touchdown every play. So I'm really looking to see what they try to do against Marvin Harrison. I think Travion's going to have a stellar game. I really do. He's healthy now. I think we're gonna see some steps from him. Our offensive line is playing more consistent. On the Michigan side, though, what I'm most worried about is Blake Corum. He's my Heisman quote unquote hopeful. I think, in my opinion, he's going to play a full game. He's going to get the ball. They like to give him counter plays when we least expect it. And our defense, yes, is more sound this year than they were last year. But the way you would like to shade and hide our defense, a counter play can be detrimental. So if you're doing an over and you're going to rotate to the opposite side on snap, the play is countered away from that, it's going to bust for 80 plus yards every time, and we saw that last year. Will we be ready for that? And how will Knowles handle trying to get pressure while still being safe? Unlike last year where it was blitz, 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 safety gets beat. And will our corners be able to step up and maybe even handle more of that this year?
It'll be interesting to see. We'll definitely dive deeper into the matchup next week, as well as several other college football matchups. That ends the show for today. Thanks for everyone that stopped by and watched. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on our social media at Unnamed Sports S. And again, this will be uploaded to all of the locations that you'll find podcasts. So wherever you find your podcast, make sure to go like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you again so much, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time.